Jeb Bush says Baltimore and Ferguson protests were caused because of a lack of mentorship. Yes, indeed, America, it is true. He was at a conference in South Carolina. He was at an event in South Carolina, rather, and he was asked a question about education. He said the following: kids in this country are aimlessly wandering around in their lives because they've never been told that they are capable of learning. They've never been challenged to achieve far better. They've never really had the kind of mentorship and nurturing that gives them the sense that their lives can be better. You see what happened in Baltimore and Ferguson? You see the tragedy play out? You see people so despondent that they took actions, they took actions that are horrific, unquote. So I read it. I had to process it for a second. I wanted to make sure I heard them. So I read it again. I said to myself, you see what happened in Baltimore and Ferguson? You see the tragedies play out. Yeah! You're damn right I saw the tragedies play out. I saw 2 black men who were unarmed shot by the hands of police. In Baltimore, Freddie Gray's spine was broken by police. The new coroner report indicates that he had such a blunt injury in the vehicle that his spine he was done, a mess, killed at the hands of reckless, intentional police officers. That, Governor, is the tragedy. Peaceful protesting is not the tragedy. That's the miracle that came out of the tragedy. Let's be very clear. People coming together and demanding their rights is what makes America a great country. You see, because what those young people did in Baltimore and what those young people did in Ferguson and what they did in New York City was the same thing that our founding fathers did when they went to the Boston Harbor and had the Boston Tea Party. It's the same thing that happened at the Boston Massacre. It's the same reason as to why George Washington crossed the Delaware. That is what we saw take place in Ferguson and in Baltimore and in New York City. It was America at its best. The American people using their constitutional right to express an ill with the system. Governor. So next time you make a quote like that, understand that we live in a country that gives us the freedom of speech and the freedom to protest. These young people aren't walking around aimlessly. They got a purpose. Their purpose is simple. Black lives matter. And sadly to you and to your Republican colleagues, all 35 of you that are running for President of the United States, black lives don't matter because you have stood by the police. You have stood by the bad laws. You have stood by the stand your ground doctrine. You guys have stood by the NRA. You have stood by the wrong people. The people who want to kill. The people who want to pillage communities. The people who want to defund public education. That's where you have stood. Every single time. The people who preach hate. You've stood by people like Pamela Geller, who decided it was okay to make fun of Allah. That's who you stood by. When it came down to it, you stood by Ann Coulter, who would not hug a legal immigrant woman who came to this country and was nothing more but the American dream. You stood by Donald Trump when he called all the folks who are coming from Mexico rapists and thieves. That's who you stood by. And that is walking around aimlessly and wandering with no direction, if you ask me personally. That is the rub. That is the problem with the country. Not black young people taking back, using the Constitution to fight for their rights. That is what makes America great. That is what makes America exceptional. George Bush, Jeb Bush, George Bush Sr., all of yous. That is what makes America exceptional. So next time you make this comment, maybe you, my friend, need the mentor. Maybe you need to go to Ferguson and talk to the organizer there and be mentored about what the Constitution means. Because clearly you don't know. Where am I?